Good afternoon, everyone. Great to be here. My name is Saku Tiiviräinen, and I've been working for Elisa for a long time, 3.5 weeks to be precise. And I will look into my background in a bit more detail in a little while. But over here, there's a couple of highlights of the recent activities that I've been up to. So basically, I was working for an ICT company, Cinia, as a recruiter before, and before that as a recruitment manager in the public sector for Järvenpää City Council. And as mad as I am, I've embarked on a PhD research earlier on for universities of Helsinki and Edinburgh, and it's still ongoing. And let's not talk about the research. Okay, but the presentation is about LinkedIn, personal branding, and jobs. I try to relate it to some jobs as well, but I think it's really a mixture of them all. Hopefully you find it interesting. What we're doing is we are recording this set with the photographer Jani, and we aim to release it on YouTube and LinkedIn, and there will be no images of anyone who's present, but in case that you want to have a look later on, or some other audiences want to have a look, that's the purpose of it really. So just to start up, how many of you have got LinkedIn accounts? All right, that's a good one, about 2/3. How many of you have contacted new people, networked with new people on LinkedIn? Okay, about 1/10. Okay, so let's turn it around this afternoon and make it 2/3 contacting new people on LinkedIn as well. Out of curiosity, how many of you have talked to a new person, say at university lectures? Well, not during, but say after. Yeah, a good portion, about half. So I think, yeah, there's absolutely no worries in taking the same mindset to, say, LinkedIn. And what about, have you come across with new folks at student association meetings or dinners or such like? Some of you, yeah? So, you know, we're talking about networking, and whether it's on LinkedIn or elsewhere, it's really about the same thing. After meeting new folks at the dinners or meetings, did you network with them on LinkedIn? 2, all right. We will make a change to that. Okay, just a quick look why it's important, what we're doing and discussing today. You've probably heard about the relative difficulty of the Finnish job market. Have you heard the cliches? Just a nod is perhaps enough, but that, for example, Finnish people are introvert. Have you come across with something like that? To a certain degree? That Finnish job market is difficult to access? Yeah, a bit so. Perhaps even more so, with no fluent Finnish language? Yeah. Did you know that studies have found that expatriate Finns who are returning from overseas, they've got struggle finding a job? And the reason being that they don't have relevant networks. Because their old networks, 10 years ago, you know, after they went to, say, US or China or wherever, when they return, that's next to expired. So it's not easy, but I think in spite of this all, or actually, because we and you recognize this, you will be able to land relevant jobs in the near future. But it's all about hard work. So we need to start creating a network concurrently we will create a bit of a personal brand and find the jobs. I like this. This is really not my style to talk, but I show you how. That made me smile when I was writing it down. I think there is some truth to it. I'm sharing my story as a public communicator for you, mainly because I've struggled with the idea that I type something online. I've sweated and fretted, and it hasn't been nice. But these days I've become fairly fluent. So what I'm doing with this is trying to encourage you to learn quicker. It took me years. So let's make that tens of minutes for you guys. So I was born in 1980. That's eternities ago. So I came across with letters as the media of public communication. In the 80s, 90s, it was emails. Facebook 2000s, and I was wondering about the emails at the time that, I can understand the text messages, but emails, what on earth? So, we're talking about an old man. And really the nature of communication was private for myself. And at the same time, I went to primary school, secondary high school, Edinburgh Uni, doing the bachelor's degree over there. And really I was thinking at the time that, right, do we really have to talk about the social media? Surely we can just not need it, not use it, why bother? All right, but I entered LinkedIn 2008. I treated LinkedIn as pretty much as a public passive CV. Write it down, put it online, forget all about it. If you don't do much, you will not be recognized. Smart. Did my master's at the Jyväskylä University, worked at a warehouse in my spare time, did the thesis. I realized they published it online, and I wasn't at ease with the idea. Anyone can access it, even now. Not that it's that good that you should, but anyway. So, the mentality I held was, it's public, but please don't look. Yeah, just give it a miss. And then in 2011, I moved into recruitment, which was then requiring a bit of a shift in my line of thought. So playing with one of the memes and the cliches of Finns, networking and recruitment, that sort of goes hand in hand. So I had to overcome some personal issues. So I created a Facebook work profile, started using LinkedIn for sourcing. Yeah, you can say sourcing and LinkedIn pretty often, I think. Started doing the recruitment. I started the PhD. For a small period of time, I was actually thinking I will not have to do any of that personal branding stuff. So yeah, I was thinking that, okay, my personal brand, it's becoming a bit more public, but sure, you can have a peak, but let's not spend too much time on it. At the time of doing the PhD, I started thinking, well, what are the cliches then about the recruiters that recruiters hold about the PhD researchers and stuff? What if it's all about, okay, you research a lot of stuff, but you come up with nothing concrete, tangible, or stuff like that. So kind of like I started dreading, if I'm going to be an expert that waits for being invited to do a lot of stuff, but nobody will show up. So I had to start taking the bitter pill and be more active. And then as time has passed, I've kind of like come to realize it doesn't have to be a big deal to be active networking, whether that's in real life or on LinkedIn. And by using the real life and LinkedIn in separate realms, well, I will return to it later. But yeah, I think a lot of people have this relationship with the whole idea that, you know, sure, you can start being active on LinkedIn and yeah, sure, somebody will care. Haha. So, okay, as a public communicator, I think my present stage started in about 2016 when I was in Edinburgh for a year doing my PhD, and I was really nervous about, okay, I'm working in the public sector, I'm going to be away for a year, I'm doing a PhD. If I'm going to make it into the private sector, you know, PhD, public sector, away for a year, it's not a good combination. So I started becoming active. And so I added contacts, started making updates. I'll show you how in a moment. And then kind of like have carried on ever since. And yeah, there's nothing too important or interesting about kind of like being active on LinkedIn, but at the same time, kind of like taking that mindset that, you know, it comes second nature to you, makes things a lot easier. So the funny thing is then, you know, after starting communicating with a lot of people, whether that's on LinkedIn, it started to kind of like happen in real life as well. So what I'm talking about is, you know, there's recruitment networks came up with recruitment camps, you know, that the Finnish recruiters meet up, like a conference for recruiters, but in a very informal setting. And I came across with that because I was active on LinkedIn. Similar activities take place in other fields as well, you know, whether that's a conference or something else. So yeah, go and talk to folks, and all of a sudden, you know, things were overlapping. Fair enough. And yes, the mentality had changed. Yes, yeah, do have a look what I'm all about, what I'm doing. So the new world, personal branding, it was really about kind of like ignoring LinkedIn and then changing that to embracing LinkedIn. And sure, I don't know if it's a culturally sensitive way of using the memes. I've received a very to the point feedback on the use of the meme pictures, that they haven't been exactly accurate. So this is only my take on the pictures. But basically, the last few years of activity have landed me the last couple of jobs implicitly. So it's just one of these things that it does matter. You know, what's your personal brand like, and how broad a network you've got, and all the rest of it. Okay, so what is? One definition of personal branding talks about it's the practice of people marketing themselves and their careers as brands. Well, yeah, fair enough. So it's all about personal branding suggesting that success comes from self-packaging. That's just a little bit cynical perspective on it, but I understand why it's put that way. And it was used in 1997 article by Tom Peters, and yay, this is from Wikipedia. However, I think what's noteworthy is that you do have a personal brand in any case. Whether you're active, you know, actively networking or not, but you do have a personal brand. And so, you know, it's all about your peers, your teachers, the networks that you already know, what they've heard of you and know of you, and all the rest of it. So the question is, why not try it out, extend it a bit further? And always relating to this definition, always the hard work comes first when it comes, you know, to your field of expertise. You cannot overcome, you know, by personally branding yourself, you know, your inadequacies in your field of expertise. You know, just a simple point, but I want to just make it clear. Okay, so an example. I was thinking to myself, preparing for this session today, that what might be a meaningful way to give you an example. So I met with Vakar on Monday, and the point was wanted to have a chat with him, and basically talking about what's his background and how he came to study at Aalto and all the rest of it. And we had a good time. Yay, surprise, surprise! There was a LinkedIn update of that. So no, I think you're not surprised by that anymore. So how he came to Aalto to do the degree. So we were chatting. He's worked for Huawei before. Finland attracted because of the communications engineering. He's at Aalto now. He's about to finish probably by the end of 2020. And he's definitely looking forward to be a future 5G expert. And he wants to work in Finland after the degree and do all sorts of relevant summer jobs. And he's a great lad. We have a superb conversation, had a lot of good time. So then the question is, when we're updating the LinkedIn profile, the foundation for reaching out on LinkedIn is understanding where you aim at. So if you aim at 5G jobs in Germany, well, that's where you look at. If you're looking for 5G jobs in Finland, equal to that. I will return to this point a little sometime later, but don't worry about the cultural nuances of Germany, Finland, but appreciate the broad points. So kind of like how people communicate with each other and all the rest of it. And just highlighting that Finland and networking can be a little bit different to say United States and networking. I think people are a bit more blunt and frank in Finland than in comparison to the US. So kind of like just be appreciative of the cultural broad points. With regards to LinkedIn profiles and activity, my rule of thumb is simple. It's be clear, be real. And can they say to themselves that, right, what does that mean then? That was helpful. Thanks very much. And this is kind of like through a personal reflection. When you're real, when you mean the points, whatever, if it's making an update on LinkedIn or raising your hand at a lecture or having an argument or making a nice argument at a meeting, when you're genuinely behind that point, you can't go wrong. And by that I mean that, a lot of people have this feeling that I can't say, yes, well done me, I've done this great job, if I feel, or hear in 2 weeks' time, that wasn't too good. So I can't make a point out of the job well done at this point because you're fretting about the future, and I will not feel confident at that point. So my take is that, okay, if you genuinely experience an issue X, be interesting at the lecture, for example, or the work you did together with others, it was fascinating, or the topic Y or Z, you name it, there is absolutely no reason to regret later on, about making that argument or writing it down. If you learn a month later, right, it was a bit skewed, I didn't know all the facts. Well, you can always then return to that topic rather than feel guilty that, oh no, what a shame, I wrote something like that. What you knew then, you cannot be later and responsible at the point. Okay, of course you can prepare yourselves and do a good reading. However, I think this is a core point. At least it's been for myself. And for example, if I would hear next month that, okay, there was something I was really missing in this session, well, sure, I would update it later on and make a point out of it, because learning takes place all the time. So, returning to the LinkedIn profile, we had the chat with Vakar, and he's, I think he had a good introductory text in the LinkedIn profile, and a nice title, graduate student at Aalto University, but it both can be a little bit more explicit, where you're coming from, where you're heading to. So, we tried it out at the meeting, and master's student at Aalto University, future 5G expert. So the recruiter that comes across with his profile knows where he's aiming at, and and the recruiter knows where is him at this time. Hello, nice to see you. Welcome. We're just talking about you. And so, and then expanding a little bit in the introductory text. So what really is important is to translate your current situation to the audience. And the audience, well, if you're looking for jobs, obviously, it's the recruiters then, and the recruiting managers. If you're doing sales, you're not interested about the recruiters, you're interested about the people who will buy from you. You need to have a little bit of thinking, who is your audience that you're speaking to? So just a couple of points over there. Is everything a ready-made world at this point? No, but it's good enough for now. Start today. Open your laptops. Updating, and then trust that once you've done it, you can then perhaps tomorrow or next week return to it and update it further. Learn in the process. We had a chat that the photo we could make it even better. So the goal of the picture on LinkedIn, again, it's quite simple, but it's about the audience. So the recruiters, the hiring managers, they are looking forward to a professional, friendly, nice person, and your picture should convey that. For example, my picture on LinkedIn, I like to call it a bit of a friendly fool picture, but really the point is, I'm using, is this a collar, by the way? Hoodie? Is this a collar? Yes, thank you. Just had a moment of not believing my knowledge of words. So, I'm using them both. Audiences matter. If I would work as a business director, I would wear a suit in the picture. Recruiting developers, I would be using a hoodie. And me at Elisa, well, I'm somewhere in between. Hence the combination. But the main point really is the picture to make it easy to approach me. So, about LinkedIn activities, before going into jobs, something more concrete. How to get started? Well, make it a habit. Make an update, say, on Mondays. There's a couple of ideas. What's been of interest recently at uni? You don't know how many recruiters and recruiting managers and senior whatnot are interested to hear what you guys are going through at the uni. What's been of interest to you at the last lecture? Because you are at the top of the game. You are the experts of the 2020s. So there's absolutely no question that you don't have a lot of stuff to share with the wider audience. Make it a habit. Make a couple of comments per day to somebody else's update. And remember to comment others when they comment you. Social media, at the end of the day, is social. It's reciprocal. So even though you're motivated doing this for your own benefit, but networking is really always first about the other person, and then secondarily about yourself. Make it a habit. Send 10 invitations per week for new people, to new people. So start with all the colleagues at the uni, make it 50 even. All the lecturers, all the visiting people, on the basis of who you would like to speak to, who holds similar interests to you. And, for example, send a brief invitation alongside with it, such as, hi there, I came across with your LinkedIn profile. I'm an Aalto master student, I network extensively, and I would be very glad to add you into my network, best such and such. If they ignore you, so what? Majority will accept, because that's what LinkedIn is. It's all about networking, getting to know new people. So what I did in Scotland, I had this habit of having, I think within a year, I had about 15 to 20 morning coffees. I did the same, sent an invitation. If we had a good chat via the messages, I said, I'm in Scotland, but how about grabbing a coffee over Skype? And we did. And I spoke with a lot of recruiters about what they do, and then I was sharing what I'm doing for my research, and and that was half an hour, nice talking, nice getting to know, and that's it. No pressure, no harm done, only new contacts.
Can I do a question?
Of course.
So at the beginning of LinkedIn, I remember that it was like a suggested way of doing it, that is, you only reach people that you know, or you only add people you know. So maybe you've been a recruiter, you can send 10, but for me, for example, sometimes people ask me for introduce another person. So if I don't know that person, it's like, why do you have that person in your network, right? So I try to maintain all the people that I personally know.
I think a lot of people have that same kind of perception, that you should only hold people in your network that you personally know. I think there's no particular reason to have that mentality. And I'll refer to something called LinkedIn Megaopas in a short period of time, which goes through then I can't remember how many pages there are, but every small nitty-gritty detail about LinkedIn and the logics of it. And so that's something that you can refer to later. But there's absolutely nothing preventing you from doing exactly this. Okay, so what to write on LinkedIn? Well, there was an example. This guy Jere went to a recruitment fair. He asked for opinions, how his CV looks like. And he had a great debate about looking good, well, it's a bit dark, on all that type of stuff. There was another person wondering, okay, I could work in a different country. And there was a conversation following. That this was at the early stage. I organized a recruitment fair. Now I feel very good about it. Okay. If you're really thinking what you should if you're one of these people who can't get started before you know all the details, well, there is a lot to read. I'll share you a few points more, but I'm just highlighting that the information is out there in case you really want to read first and then start doing. My encouragement is don't choke, just start and learn in the process. Because a lot of people say to themselves, it's a really good thing, this LinkedIn, I need to get started. And then they say that to themselves a year later. And whereas you can just start and get going. Well, where and when personal branding then links to jobs. And to be honest with you, personal branding and networking is fundamentally a long-term investment. So, repeating that point, okay, do they know you, and how they talk about you when you're not there. So you've got it, in any case. It's definitely likely to improve the job search success. And the key point, repeating myself here, is that you already have a personal brand. Whereas then job search is at first a short-term investment until of course, you get a job, and then it becomes part of your CV, and you move forward and build on it, and etc. Personal branding is very likely to improve your job search success. I think this is a kind of like a clear point that we should underline here. Okay, just a quick reminder how I went about it. No reason to kind of like spend too much time. It's the long-term mindset, and then adding the short-term. So the last couple of jobs definitely, helped by my own undergoings. Right, before coming over here, about 2 weeks ago, I asked my network, does your company hire folks without need for Finnish language skills? That I will be holding a talk with folks at Aalto who study various subjects, come from Finland and beyond. And I can do a bit of advertising. And that was in Finnish, which is, now that I think of it, a bit silly. But in any case, you may criticize me for a reason. Okay, here's what they replied. So can I tag your company at Aalto? Sure. So for example, at Elisa, there are roles in English. Opta Fidelity, how to pronounce that, roles in English. Valmet Automotive, roles in English. Ubisoft Red Links and Graduate Program, roles in English. BM Trada, accreditation company, roles in English. Vario, roles in English. Efficode, roles in English. And then, definitely, yes, the industries we work in, we promote junior professionals into the expert career path. Academic work, roles in English, and expertise, roles in English. So these few companies, they are based on a simple update on LinkedIn. There are many more companies out there. And then this is of interest. The companies, recruitment companies, they work with many major, big international companies, and I'll just show why it's worthwhile having a look. So the external agencies, they have multiple business models. One is to provide new external professional staff to companies at the rate agreed in the SLA, so service level agreement. Can you think that the SLAs vary from anything, say, from 6 days to 1? So company X calls, all right, I need somebody for tomorrow. Yes, we've agreed that we can deliver. So when the situation is such, you have to be in their database. So what I'm suggesting, especially the academic work and expertise, who knows, watching this film perhaps later, other companies will highlight their point as well. But they have access, provide access to English spoken roles in variety of companies at the junior expert level. And then a lot of companies use recruitment agencies for new staff. And just to understand why, I think it helps you to motivate to approach them. I came up with at least 2 reasons. One being that companies don't have really the resources to keep up a database for immediate employee needs, i.e., somebody being away for half a year or something like that. And then the other one is that the Finnish job market is fairly regulated. So, in comparison to the US, we're talking about employment at will, termination at will. Then, Finland, employment by contract and termination according to regulated principles. So, when we're talking about fluctuating need for employment, I think these 2 elements are the reasons why recruitment agencies do so well and why you should keep up with them. So, okay, I've heard about the companies. So what now? Start bombarding them? Well, it's your call how to go about it. I would recommend a strategy. Take care of the long term. Personal branding. So start communicating, leave a note of your personality into your networks that are expanding. Then understand what the Finnish companies look for. So we're talking about, I think you've heard all of this a million times here at Aalto, but independent mindset, excellent skills, critical thinking, group working, cross-cultural savvy, etc. And then be effective in the short term, job hunting. Apply to positions, contact recruiters on LinkedIn. When you apply, you've already got a number of people that you can connect with, say on LinkedIn, and you at least know them to some extent. I would just use it, and not in a pushy way that okay, I've applied, please choose me now. More meaningfully. There was an example just a moment ago I shared with you. Why is this then important? The 3 elements. Well, when you know what the job market values, it's easier to be effective in applying to the positions, of course. On the other hand, when you know what the job market values, then it's easier to communicate appreciating the job market elements. You will be using in the long term your personal brand in applying to positions, and eventually, if you're very active, you will be chosen to a job or asked for a position even based on your personal brand. So this is me being all, I don't know, is it any good? But it's not that serious, What I'm saying to you is there's no reason to be too, I don't know, selective about how you come out and extend your networks and personal brands. It's not that serious. Another example, these guys, they went to a recruitment fair, and what they did, they had the LinkedIn shirts on. Please connect, And again, it's about LinkedIn, recruitment fair, real life, social media, which is which, or is it the same? So, what to communicate then? Well, your field of expertise, the know-how, what you want to specialize in through your studies, what themes you want to work with later on. There are many topics. What do you already study? What you've been up to lately? You're preparing for an exam. What's kind of like the most difficult thing? Share that. The goals of the future organizations that you've identified. Okay, what they are looking for, what is their vision? So, there are themes that you can convey. In your studies, what's of interest to others? What's your passion? What do you love to do and study? What makes you smile? What can you do? What you can do for free, and you're happy doing it? Why not share it? There are many topics how to start kind of like communicating your personal brand. This is based on Someko.fi. So, and for the last words, repeating a little bit, but then just extending this point further, that you've already got networks. You've got football friends, you've got scout friends, you've got music friends, you've got student association over here, etc. Friends at the last job, friends at the uni, acquaintances at LinkedIn, social media, other folk and start expanding. So in a nutshell, why make the effort? Create a personal brand whilst looking for jobs. Well, you network, you benefit, you get to know new people, you expand your horizons of your thinking and what's possible. You benefit. And that's concrete. I'm standing here concretely. As far as I can tell. And then soon you cannot tell you know, the difference between networking in real life and via social media. Yeah, repeating the point, the lived life merges the two. Then from an employer point of view, you demonstrate actively your activity, how you argue, what types of topics are of interest to you, what type of sense of humor you have, what types of observations you make. These all are elements that are in essence positive for recruitment. Visibility and braveness to stand the heat of the spotlight is a positive element thing too, I think. I think a lot of employers look at it that way. And at the end of the day, sure, you can do okay without personally branding yourself. But then the colleague who finds a genuine take to personally brand yourself does get a small advantage. And if you know the same thing and can do the same job as the other one, well, who is known might be more likely to be selected. You want to work in 6 months? Start right now. So what next? Start. Take LinkedIn. Make it a habit. 15 minutes a day. Apply to jobs concurrently if that's of relevance to you. Identify the recruiters of the jobs. Link with them in a culturally savvy way. Your colleagues as well. Carry on with your personal branding and be real. Talk about different themes that relate to work. And you'll do fine. Thank you. At this point, I think most importantly, you need to find me on LinkedIn and Vakar, definitely. Yeah, I would love to hear comments, questions, critique. Sorry, I've been talking too much. 45 minutes is a long time listening to one person blathering throughout in a rushed way. Was this of any relevance? Hands up if you thought this was useful. Oh, very glad to hear. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you.